You asked for it, and I did it. The comparison between the 2020 GR Yaris and the 2024 Mark II version. And let's just get into it. So, what is the difference between the two cars? I have done a lot of digging before making this video in order to give you the most ample and informed information I could. And let's address the elephant in the room. The first point is, would you want to sell your GR Yaris, your 2020 version, if you already have one, on one hand, and would you want to buy a 2020 or a 2024 if you are purchasing a GR for the first time? So, for this, it's very simple. If you do not have a GR Yaris and you will street your car and you don't plan on huge modifications, just buy the new one as soon as it's available, because it's a great product, I assure you. On the other hand, if you want to and plan to heavily modify your car, you should buy a 2020 version, maybe finding a car with a few more kilometers and that you can pay a bit less, and then invest your money in the modifications. This is if you're going to track the car a lot, if you're going to do a lot of Recce in it. And you know about the GR tax, so parts are very expensive. Here we try to cut through the bullshit, but still it takes a lot. And if you already own a 2020 GR Yaris, I would say I will not sell mine. I will keep it because I invested money in this car to tailor it to what I want. We will go through all the modifications just now. I've got a list in front of me and I'll show it on the screen also, part by part. But in the end, these are just fixes to improve what was a bit flawed in the first version. Therefore, if you already invested the money or plan to invest the money on your car to make it better, because you want a more hardcore driving experience, a 2020 will be fine. If your car, on the other hand, is stock and you're just a daily driver that is totally stock and enjoy the car for how Toyota did it, I'm sure you will see some very good improvements on the new version. So, let's go into it. Interior trim. What do we have? New dashboard. Well, we all know that the old dashboard had a problem, especially with the center monitor of the infotainment system. That was too high. So the gap between the top of the infotainment screen and the rear view mirror was too small, and it was just not okay. We got now also a digital cluster that is a 12.3 inch version with two different HMIs, depending, that means what you see on the screen, depending on what mode of drive you are in, normal or sport. And yes, we've got a new central, let's say, cockpit towards the driver that you like it, you don't, this is personal, but yes, it works all together in the package. And we've got new door panels with new door trim. So the interior also addresses something very important that I recently made a video about, that is the seating position, up and down. It's too high in the stock car from 2020, and now they have diminished this by exactly 25 millimeters. So you're sitting 25 millimeters lower and you've got a 50 millimeter lower dash, so you're actually seeing more outside of the car, and this is a great thing. Yeah, so let's go to the exterior trim. So we have structural changes to the front bumper that is got a different, let's say, appearance now, a facelifted appearance. Once again, I will not go into the specifics. I like it, I don't like it. I think it's a good evolution, but I'm very interested in the fact that the bumper itself is divided in three parts. So if you hit a rock, if you hit something in a curb and you need to change, replace a part of your bumper, you can only buy this section. Another interesting addition is that the mesh grille that in the first version was plastic now is metal. So this is also something very interesting. Yeah, they changed the rear tail lights and garnish. I like the concept. I'm not a total fan of how it worked out from the style point of view, but you know, once again, this is personal. They replaced the rear mufflers and the rear exit from the muffler, and this was very much needed. I think it increases the sound a little bit too, and this also looks better on the car itself. The rear bumper is a totally new style together with the diffuser. They say it improves a little bit aerodynamics, and the rear spoiler is in the same color of the body. There is something different because before it was just always black plastic. They also took away the fog lamps that we had at the beginning, also because who had the car and used the fog lamps, the stock fog lamps, know that they're not much. Many of my friends have been taking the stock units out and putting LED versions inside. One of them, Angelo, developed a bracket to just adapt these 3-inch depth lights instead of the stock fog lights, and they just plug and play and it works great. But once again, there's a fix if you have the 2020 car, and you can instead buy the other one and use the main lights, and that's all. And then maybe still add some LED lights if you need more power in vision. So the engine is very, very different this time around. We all know that there have been many failures on the GR Yaris engine, due mainly to the valve train, but many people have also broken pistons because they say it's about the piston ring tolerances were not perfect. So there have been some episodes of mega blow-by and detonation of the engines, even just like in the case of Acme's GR. He detonated the engine that had been through a lot of severe testing to develop the ECUs for the rally cars, but he was like on a standstill, just like idling the car. So this is again a good addition. All in all, the engine is basically the GR Corolla engine, and we've got different pistons with different rings, different shape, and very much lighter. We've got the exhaust valves like in the GR Corolla that are bigger, different material and more resilient. We've got the valve springs that are reinforced in their rate. We've got a different exhaust muffler, so this also contributes to developing more power. We've got an increase in fuel rail pressure and injection pressure. We've got a redesigned intake. We've got an additional oil cooler, so you will have this as standard in the car instead of having to install it later, because it is needed, and an additional water cooler. Then we have intercooler sprayer that I think is coming to Europe on the circuit version, that it wasn't coming before. It was like an aftermarket add-on with stock parts. And the maximum output has been increased by 32 horsepower. This is in Japan. For us in Europe, because there is the GPF filter, I think this is the figure is 20 horsepower. But this means that if you take the GPF filter out, it's 32 horsepower out of the box, and about 30 Newton meter of torque. So this is the engine. All in all, much more reliable, a good addition to this. But once again, if you have the 2020 version, at some stage you will install probably the camshafts and the springs. And once again, if you're going to be pushing even the new engine, you will do that because it adds at least 1000 RPM to the higher rev range, while losing almost nothing on the Kelford EZ and the Kelford A cams, the stage 1 ones. And therefore, if you have to modify the car, it's not so much of an added value. Plus, you will forge your engine at some time and it will be stronger even of the new version. Or you can just put the GR Corolla pistons into a 2020 GR Yaris. Transmission, let's talk of the manual 1-to-1. So it's not clear if they've changed the ratios, but it's possible that they've tweaked the final ratios on this. and for sure they have worked on the shifter cables and on these bushings that are on the shifter leverage on top of the gearbox that I also talked to you about. This is a very cheap mod actually, so I don't think they really invested much on the gearbox, but just making it work a bit better. The big addition obviously is the ZF automatic 8-speed gearbox, so this is a big addition. For sure, if you daily your car, it can be very good. For sure, it's going to keep the car in always in higher revs, and it can help on fuel economy. But I am not sure that this is such a good addition, especially if you use your car, for example, in rally recce or in situations where the grip is slippery or it changes a lot in time, because it does take away a grade of connection with the car, and it does take away a bit of the engine brake, and there's just nothing to do with it. And mind you, this is all from experience on other cars, and from what I digged from this, because obviously it's not possible to try the car as I'm not a journalist at the moment. I will try it and I will make another video to let you know once the time is. Always in transmission, there is something instead that is very, very intelligent. So they changed the way the software logics in the way that the center differential works, and now the normal remains comes to 60/40, and the track mode that used to be 50/50 now varies from 60/40 to 70/30, so 70 being in the back, so it's 30/70. Yeah, sorry for that. What does this mean? This means that, in my opinion, I'm not a fan of having a variable torque split, because I like the car to react always in the same way. In fact, many people that are preparing these cars for ice driving or for rally driving, they are just putting in a central differential that is fixed 50/50. And then they play with mechanical diffs in the front and rear axle in order to get the balance they want out of the car. What I like instead is the gravel mode that is now locked in 53/47, so 53% in the front and 47% in the rear. And this I like a lot, because in low grip conditions, this is what I was looking for, because the car slides too much laterally with the four wheels spinning, and also if your car is modified and you got a lot of torque, it is hard to keep the differentials working. As we all know, the torsion differential acts as a differential but with no preload. So if you lose completely traction on one wheel, on one axle, the differential acts like an open differential. That is something that is very, very sketchy when you get the car sliding over the limit, and it's something that personally I do not know why, and I do not like, maybe for serviceability. And personally in the future I will put in mechanical clutch plate differentials, no doubt about that, because for me it's much safer and the car performs better. GR Yaris 2020. If in regards to this, with 700 or 800 euros you can install a Cyvex differential controller that will enable you, through your tuning partner or yourself through the computer, to program the center differential. So once again, for a mildly expensive addition, you can have the same features but tailor them to what you want on the 2020 version. So you see, it's not something that is always so clear, but you're getting it in a package that is already okay and it's tailored. So let's come to the chassis now. In the chassis, we find that they increased the car chassis rigidity. How did they do this? They increased it by adding 13% more weld points and 24% more structural adhesive. Once again, this is not something that you will feel by driving the car, especially on stock suspension, but it is something that increases its overall performance and durability, because there's less stress and strain in the chassis itself. One day probably I will sim weld my chassis, and that will be that, but once again, it's not a deal breaker. It's a good thing they did it. We also saw on the GR MN that this was necessary, so it comes well. Talking of suspension, we have 30% more spring rate on the front and rear springs. That's a lot. So there is a big bump up, and together with this we also get new bushings, and we get a stiffer front anti-roll bar. So obviously they've been focusing more for who uses the car in track days, because maybe this is not what I would have done for general rally recce or so use or road use, but I'm going to be very interested in trying this. Another non-confirmed thing is that I read that the rims, the BBS alloy rims, are now 8.5J in the width channel, but I have not found official confirmation about this yet. The dampers have new damping curves, but again, this is very difficult matter, and I don't have any specific information about this. So now, electronics. This car's got one feature that is like lane recognition that has been improved over the previous version, and another fact that will only come in Japan, but if the car with a payment service through T-Connect recognizes for the Japanese cars that you are on a circuit, they can give you some anti-lag, and they can give you some premium driving features that make the difference. Once again, this is just something I read. It is official, but I do not have the details, and for sure if there is any anti-lag it will be super mild, so it's not something I would be interested in. Last but not least, in Japan, the RC specification will only more be available on white, and there will not be anymore the RS specification of this car. There are new colors, that is a new color, that is this metal gray, precious metal gray color, and then you still got the emotional red, the precious black, the super white, and the platinum white pro color. So all in all, I hope this video was interesting, super long, and I tried to make it as fast as possible. And please drop the comments and let me know what else you would like me to do in the next videos, because I love reacting to your wishes. I'm here to inform and to share. I've got something boiling up about suspension, very good, and you will hear about it soon. Cheers now.